My first research article was called Supporting the Needs of Beginning Special Education Teachers and Their Students. The two authors were Chris Swigert and Lauren Collins. The second research article was Making Inclusion Work with Co-Teaching, and the author was Thomas Scruggs and Margot Mastropieri. The third one that I did was comprehension, and it was called Selected Possibilities for Clinical Practice Within a Multidimensional Model. The authors were Geraldine Wallach and Elaine Ocampo. The fourth article that I did was What Beginning Special Educators Need to Know About Conducting Functional Behavioral Assessments. The author was Timothy Lewis and Heather Hatton. The fifth article that I did was called Selecting Appropriate Text for Adolescents with Disabilities, and the author was Elizabeth Swanson. My first research article, which was Supporting the Needs of Beginning Special Education Teachers and Their Students, that was about how there's a shortage of special education teachers, and the reason that there's a shortage is because most teachers get overwhelmed when they first start teaching, and most of them get out of the profession within a few years. Research is being done to better prepare these teachers because they feel like the teachers aren't prepared for the real job. They think that they know all the information and they know how to do their job, but they never get experience in the classroom, and this turns them away. They have broad knowledge from the program that they were in, but they can't translate that knowledge into the classroom because it's such a different environment. They need to have more time in the classroom so that they are better prepared. They just believe that they're really unprepared and they want to help these rates, and that's why they are doing research, because they need more special education teachers, and they feel like once they get in it, they would like to keep them in it after they go through their program. The critique for the article, there is too many parentheses. It was very distracting to the article. It makes it really confusing to read. Some paragraphs are too long, and that makes you lose the train of thought of the paragraph and what it's trying to say. It does contain very useful information for beginning teachers, and I believe that any teacher that plans to go into special education should read this article or an article like this, because it has some helpful information. It's an article that I would reference before I became a special education teacher. Overall, it's just trying to prepare teachers and warn them that they may not be prepared properly for what they are going into. My second article was Making Inclusion Work with Co-Teaching by Thomas Scruggs and Margot Mastropieri. This article is about co-teachers being willing to work together and how the classroom environment changes when it becomes a co-teaching classroom. The co-teaching is made up of one general education teacher and one special education teacher. Something that would help them is for them to sit down and write down goals of what they want the classroom to be. They need to be on the same page and be able to communicate very well so that they understand what both of them are feeling. It's important that they work as a team, and if they don't, it can really affect the classroom and how the classroom is run. The communication is the key, and they both need to be willing to listen to each other. In this article, everything is explained through the charts and tables. It was a well written and full of information. It was pretty interesting to read. The charts and tables make the information easier to read and easier to understand. And there's also bullets broken down into explanations, which really helps because you can break it apart and understand what each part is trying to say. My third research article is Comprehending Comprehension, Selected Possibilities for Clinical Practice Within a Multidimensional Model. The authors were Geraldine Wallach and Elaine Ocampo. This article is about reading comprehension and how most special ed students struggle with reading comprehension. It's been proven by research that the problem with reading comprehension starts at a young age, and it's something that needs to be built upon. And most of the time, the students never get this when they're younger, and so as they grow, as they get older, it really hurts their grades and how they understand, because most of the time they can't even read what their homework is trying to say, or they can't read a paragraph and understand what it was trying to tell them. It is important for the teachers to know all the students individually, so they can get the best educational possibilities. They need to know what each student is capable of, and so that they can help them in the best way possible. My critique was there was way too many references within the text. This takes away from the main idea, which made it harder to read. Besides that, it was very organized, and it was broken down by bullets and by numbers, but the paragraphs were the problem with being able to read it easily. The content of the article was hard to read, but the author organized the article very well in the order and how it was broken down. My fourth article is called What Beginning Special Educators Need to Know About Conducting Functional Behavioral Assessments. The authors were Timothy Lewis and Heather Hatton. This article was about controlling appropriate behavior in the classroom, and this takes a lot of time and effort, and really has to be paid attention to. Behavior in the classroom has become more of a problem over the years because punishment is not what it used to be. The problem is that behavior issues takes away from the educational part of the classroom while they're learning a lesson. If there's a kid acting up, that takes away from the lesson, and the teacher has to stop and get on to them. And the other problem with this is not only is that child getting in trouble and losing time learning, but it also distracts the other students. And that's a huge problem in classrooms. Each child in the classroom needs to have the same opportunities, but they may receive different punishments and incentives, because this is also why the teachers need to know the students on a more personal level so that they know what is going to work for that particular student. My critique for this article is that the article gives proven practices for teachers to use. So all through the article, it says what has been used in classrooms and what works and what doesn't work. This is useful for the teachers because it already tells you what works instead of them having to try something out, even though they still need to try it to see if it works for their kids. Between the references and the regulations, there were a lot of distractions from the main point, but it was overall a very good article. My fifth article is Selecting Appropriate Text for Adolescents with Disabilities, and the author is Elizabeth Swanson. This article is about the comprehension of reading within students with disabilities. More than 60% of students with disabilities attend a general education classroom. And with this being said, it's important that they can follow along with the rest of the students. Even if they are a little behind, they still need to be able to keep up and understand what else is going on in the classroom. It's important to pick readings and texts that these students can read and understand. The reading level of students with disabilities needs to be addressed more. It's an issue that is overlooked, and it really affects them later on in life. The critique to this article is that it contains good information for teachers, whether they are new or have been teaching for years. It can still be useful to all teachers. It was concluded with tables, which explains information from the article and is very helpful. It kind of recaps it, and it's a lot easier to read. There was also information that was broken down into bullets. The article is written very clearly, which made it easier to comprehend. And overall, this article was very interesting and contained good information for any type of teacher. Overall, all of these articles were very interesting to read. Special education is something that I'm looking into, so these articles did contain a lot of useful information, and these are articles that I will reference someday and look back on when it's my time to be in special education.